Yates, the other half of the odd couple, come forward.
Yeah, get closer to the mic.
Okay. As a sales rep and then sales manager for Winchester Surgical Supply, then as vice president of primary care markets for IMCO, Yates Farris was remarkable in his genuine concern for others, according to those who knew and worked with him. Farris built a sense of accomplishment and camaraderie among the reps at Winchester, many of whom built successful medical sales careers because of his mentorship. He joined IMCO in 1995, a crucial time for independent distributors as consolidation was rampant. His experience, knowledge of distribution, relationship-building skills, enthusiasm, and generosity helped the organization and its individual members thrive. A staunch student and defender of distribution, Farris had the ability to communicate its value to manufacturers. He was a terrific salesman, leader, and friend to many in the industry. And I can only echo that as a friend. You're an amazing man. Enjoyed all the years I've known you. Congratulations.
Take.
Oh, here we go.
Good luck, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Let him have it.
Oh, if I were just quick on my feet and I could rebuttal everything that had been said. I just want you to remember that, everything has been embellished, I promise you. And Karen, that picture that showed up on the screen up there, you will pay, I promise. I thank Brian and Scott and Chris Kelly for making this possible. In the past, this has always been my favorite event to attend. And of course, tonight's been very, very special to me. I feel so humbled and honored and, unworthy, but I'll try to be worthy, I promise you. And I thank Kevin Newman. The Hall of Fame was his original idea. And I thank you for that. And Alicia, I know how difficult it is to put together an event like this, and particularly working with Brian and Scott, I know that's not easy, and I thank you. And I want to tell a story that, it's a story that could be true, but Dick Mormon dies, and he goes to heaven, and he meets St. Peter at the pearly gates, and he's there, finally and surprisingly. But St. Peter says, it's not your works that get you into heaven, of course, but you have to pay penance for your sins on earth. And so St. Peter handcuffed Dick to the ugliest woman you could ever imagine. Acne, active zits, stringy hair, hairy legs, body odor, worse than you can imagine. And said, you have to be handcuffed to this lady for a year to pay for your sins and to pay your penance. And about that time, here come Mike Martz, here comes Bill Sparks, here comes Tony Malero, and Mike Carver. And to each of them is handcuffed the most beautiful woman that you can imagine. Each of them have a beautiful, beautiful, Carrie Underwood type, Megyn Kelly, but prettier. And Dick, being the salesperson he is, starts right in on St. Peter. So St. Peter, and I, whoa, this is not fair at all. Said, I wasn't the most perfect person on earth, but I know good and well I had to be better than those guys. He said, Dick, St. Peter said, Dick, you don't get it. He said, those girls have to pay their penance too. I know all of you know Tony and Dr. Ben, and of course the HR with the more modern type HR stopped all of that, and he, his wife Eileen over, and He tried to do differently. He tried Dr. Ben Gay. And his wife Enola, Ben Gay didn't go over too well also, so he's trying to find himself from that. And I want to tell you about Dick Mormon. We were fishing about 2 years ago, and one of his competitors, Brian McCarthy, and with Burdick and Dick and I, and we were out fishing, and true story. And Brian and I caught about 6 or 8 beautiful fish. We didn't know what they were, but he called them bait fish, yeah. But Brian and I, of course, called them gourmet fish. Well, this went on about 2 years. I took a picture of those fish. We did let them go, and just about 2 weeks ago, Dick and Bill Jr. and I were fishing, and we went by the bait shop that I frequent so much, and the guy there, he's a real fisherman, and so I wanted Dick to know for sure. So Dick came into the bait shop with me, and I flipped open my iPhone and showed Ike a picture there and asked him, I said, so what is that fish? He said, oh man, that's a choby. He said, that is a great gourmet fish. So, Dick was just downhearted and everything. But Dick, I want to tell you right now that was all a setup. There ain't no choby. Ike was in on it all the time. And with Mike Carver, he's the only one I know, the only person I know that's ever given his wife a racehorse for her birthday. He's the only person in this industry that I know that owns a racehorse. Is that not right? This is true stuff. I mean, the rest of us are just, low down, trodden, too poor. But he has a racehorse, and I'll tell you a little story that I know about Mike and Jenny both actually, and it has to do with quality time parked in front of their house. This is one time that happened many years ago, a few years ago anyway. But by quality time, you have to read between the lines. And a policeman comes up to the window and taps on the window and shines a flashlight in the car and says, what are y'all doing? He said, well, Mike, he's always, he can talk to anybody and have an excuse for anything. But he said, you don't understand, officer. He said, we got kids in the house. I'm glad and proud to have my wife with me tonight. She doesn't normally come to these things. If she doesn't leave me before this coming March the 6th, we will have spent 50 years together. My 2 sons and one of my daughters-in-law, the other one couldn't make it. Glad to have them here, even though they heard things that, trust me, all made up. All made up. And this past February, I quietly celebrated my 50th year in this wonderful, wonderful industry. And, if I use this like the Emmy Awards or the Tony Awards, I could sit up here and name people that helped me all through my career. And it's so many. I couldn't even name them all. But I kind of want to reminisce. I remember back in, before I got out of the Air Force, and I knew I wanted a sales job, and I thought then that if I could just get a sales job making $10,000 a year, then I would have arrived. And, when I went to work for Bill, he helped make that possible, I want you to know. But I remember back in those days, I traveled in a 1965 Volkswagen. No air conditioning. Everybody made calls in a suit or at least a jacket and a tie. I can count on one hand how many times I've been into a physician's office without a coat or tie on, and that was normally when I was maybe going out of town on vacation and stopped by to take care of a problem and that type thing. And the first thing I did was apologize when I went in the front door. I remember when I interviewed at a company in Charlotte that I went to work for, Winchester Surgical. They'd been around since 1919, and I interviewed with one of the owners, the primary owner, and he was actually the founder of the company. And it was quite an interview. This working back in those days and interviewing back in those days was so different than it is today. You know, HR didn't exist. When I became very serious with Kay, he invited us in and he interviewed Kay just as he interviewed me. He wanted to know, when we were going to get married, when we were going to start having babies, when we were going to buy a house, etc. And it come to find out that when you bought a house, he came down, when he heard that Kay and I were buying our first house, he came down and actually wanted to know exactly how much we were paying for that house, how much my house payments were going to be every month. And he questioned me intensely with that, but that resulted in a raise. And then when we had our first child, he came down, and that resulted in a raise. So it's sort of like socialism today. The more babies you have, the more money you make, you know? We had 2, and that's why we're so poor today. But I have so many memories in this industry. I remember the ASTA, which is the predecessor of HIDA, the American Surgical Trade Association. It always met in Chicago, and everybody went, and they wore their suits and carried their little attachés along. I remember when I took, today we have the, gosh, forgive me, what was this, the ASTA sales training was, back then, you became a certified consultant, and AMS today, but I remember we were 5 of us in our company, went to Las Vegas. First time ever been out of town. Kay went with me, and I had been on an airplane. I think Kay's first time she'd ever been on an airplane. Went to Las Vegas, took the test, passed it, but one guy failed it. But the next year, he got to go back again. The rest of us didn't get to go. So, if you fail, you get rewarded. And that kind of, went, that wasn't right. Didn't seem right, still doesn't seem right today. But in 95, Winchester, my company, Winchester, sold to PSS. I worked for PSS a week, and it was a great experience with Pat Kelly and them. But I had already had a wonderful opportunity and accepted it. Bill gave me a job, and we moved to Florida, and gave me the opportunity for a lot of growth and for a national presence, which I'm very, very thankful for. One of the things, too, that I'm thankful for is that the first year and a half, Bill and I shared an office. And when Bill Jr. came on, he did the same thing for about a year, maybe 2 years, I can't remember. But, Bill looked at that as OJT for building lasting and loving relationships with vendors. And it was a real experience, Bill, I assure you. I would be on the telephone, and every telephone call I make, I was critiqued. And when I said the wrong thing, I'd get hit upside the head with a paper clip or something, But I just want to close with, tonight has been very, very special for me. This is a great event. Industry's been so good. I'm a little southern boy from North Carolina that gave me, this industry gave me the opportunity to grow and exceed far more than I ever thought that I could. It's all I could ever hope or imagine for. It really is. I was reading a book not long ago about John Wooden, and he says one can never know it all. It's what you learn after you know everything that counts the most, and I truly believe that. And I thank you for it.